You're listening to TehachaPod with Budge, Corey Costelloe, and Greg Garrett.
Welcome to another episode of TehachaPod. Budge, Corey Costelloe, Greg Garrett with you as we socially distance from 3 different locations and have a conversation about Tehachapi and the things that are going on. So, guys, thanks again for another episode joining me here today.
Thanks for having us.
Excited to do it again.
Let's talk about communication. And it's, Corey, you and I both have a big background in that. Greg, you're a part of it. You're at the top of the food chain in our organization, but you are constantly getting information from all different areas. Corey and I have been on both sides, here on the government side and then also on the journalistic side. So with this coronavirus, the COVID-19 crisis that we are in, we're seeing more information, I think, than I can remember ever seeing at any level about a topic, because it's changing hour by hour. This is unprecedented.
It is absolutely unprecedented. A year and a half, 2 years ago, when I started thinking about putting a communications team together for the city of Tehachapi, I could not have dreamed that we would have created a team like the 3 of us. It's couldn't be happier and more proud of Key and Corey and what they do and what they bring. But
it's pretty much the dream team. It's pretty much the dream team. You can continue, but I needed to throw that in.
Yeah, don't go that far. But our communications platforms, they're very extensive, and this is just one of them. I have the pleasure and the honor of talking to and communicating every day with leaders at the federal, state, county level that we've talked so many times before. But it's so important to understand and to disseminate all the data, because you're right, Key. It's changing, so quick that it's mind-boggling. It's like nobody who would have ever guessed. Just 3 or 4 weeks ago, we had the world's best economy, and now we're trying to figure out where do we go next. But I know where we're going. We're going to get back to where we were. That's for sure. The point is, the social distancing and getting back sooner than later. Let's not drag this out any longer than it has to. But we have so much information, website, just on and on and on. So we're honored to be able to share that information with the public.
Well, at the levels that we're at here at the city level, we get information from the county, the state, other organizations that we're involved in, plus the federal government. I had an opportunity to talk with Megan Pearson. She's the Countywide Director of Communications for the County of Kern. And for her, it's at another level, because she's also dealing with all of the Office of Emergency Services from both the county and at the state level. So let's jump in. I had a nice conversation with Megan. I'd like to welcome Megan Pearson from the County of Kern. She is the Chief Communication Officer for the county. And welcome to TehachaPod, Megan.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I know it's so tough to try and during what's going on right now on our side of the business in government, is the amount of information that's coming in during this coronavirus crisis. So what's it like on your end? You're in charge of communications for the county. You're talking to all of us at the city levels. What has this been like for you?
Well, I'll tell you, it is a fantastic test of one's abilities as well as your patience and fortitude. There is a ton of information coming out constantly, and there's a lot of work to be done in chasing down and making sure that we're only reporting facts. The most amazing part of all of this for me has been the coordination between all of the cities and the departments and even our military bases out in East Kern. I tell you that's a huge success story for us. And you're part of that group, right? So we've been meeting every day. We're sharing information. We're trying to get it out to people as quickly as possible, and then providing a venue for all of our cities to weigh in and say, hey, this is what we're experiencing. Is anybody else hearing that or experiencing that, and sharing resources? So that part of it has been a real positive, despite the rest of it being really heavy and hard to deal with.
With what's going on now, and it's like I look at Tehachapi, and I see things through the Tehachapi rose-colored glasses, if you will. And then I look out, and just a few miles away, we're seeing different things in different cities. So it's nice having that open communication to see what might be headed our way as far as what other government entities are dealing with, and the sharing of resources. I think that, to me, is also one of the biggest benefits to this open communication plan that we have behind the scenes. It's been really helpful.
Yeah, it's heartwarming, right, that you have groups who, like, for instance, the city of Shafter has a ton of resources as in different languages that they're sharing, and the rest of us can pick that up. And then you're doing your podcasting and the videos that you talked about, and sharing those ideas across the board, and actually sharing the videos and things like that themselves. It's really cool to see. Again, it is, every community knows what's best for themselves, and so we're trying to give everyone the pieces that they need, and hoping that we can help them reach every aspect of their community, because that's really what's important to us here at the EOC, is ensuring that all of our residents get the information that they need in a manner that they're used to communicating with their government officials in.
That's a key element, is that we're not in competition with each other. We're all on the same team. We just have different groups that we're talking to or are supposed to get the information to. So it's nice to have a big roster of different communities that are sharing resources.
Yeah, and that roster now, gosh, it started, a couple of months ago. We started building this up well before the coronavirus, and I think it actually started before last summer. It was almost a year or two ago now. I can't quite remember. But now with this coronavirus, we're getting more and more of the smaller communities that weren't engaging with us before jumping in. So that's a big success as well, making sure that all of our communities have representation. And I think we're well over 60 members in that information group that we meet with each week.
And so the community knows what Megan and I have been talking about. This is the public information officers from each of the cities, different county organizations, different communities. We're all talking together about how we message our information, the data and the facts back to you, the public, making sure that we vetted it and that there's benefit and value. I know that during the Ridgecrest earthquakes, you guys were really kind of put to the fire there in the EOC and with what was going on in Ridgecrest and information. So I'm betting that was a great training ground, if you will, for what we're dealing with today and you're in there in the EOC.
Yeah, it's a series of tests. So Ridgecrest was our ability to start and see how what we'd already built worked. And then we had the PSPS events during the summer, and now we have this. And, the collaboration goes beyond just the cities and the communities, the CSDs, community service districts, You're seeing it among many parts of those who are involved in this, the medical communities working together, our public health departments. And it's not just within the county, it's all up and down the state. So there are calls happening constantly to make sure information is passing back and forth. It's just indicative of how big and universal this issue is. But one thing that I hope everybody takes away from that is that you have a huge group of people who are working really hard to be prepared. And here in Kern County, we are really well prepared. We have a really solid group of people from every aspect working together to make sure that our residents are very well taken care of and we're prepared for whatever coronavirus wants to bring our way.
So when we get past this, and then there's whatever the next event in the future holds, it'll more than likely be a much smaller scale. And then I think we're able to take what we've learned here in this situation, being on a global situation, down to start isolating into smaller things, smaller events that will even be able to kind of come to the table and help each other. Maybe it's something that's not affecting me, but I might be able to offer my services to assist in that other community just based on this networking that's been created.
Absolutely. This is testing us to the extreme, right? It's pushing us on every element. And so we're finding where our weaknesses are, and it's giving us an opportunity to say, okay, we need to get better at that piece. And so now, and we're doing that while trying to respond. So when it comes to the next issue, whatever that may be, we're better than we were before. And like you said, we already have the network built, and we have the contacts, and we can reach across city and county lines and say, hey, I have a resource, let me help.
Have there been any challenges with this event for you, this coronavirus event, that you've come across that maybe you weren't anticipating?
I think it is just the amount of information. And one of the things that's really hard as an information officer to kind of process is the misinformation that gets out there. And that's just for me personally. It's very difficult to, you get on Facebook to make posts on behalf of your organization, or even personally, in the evening, just to see what family and friends are up to, and you see a lot of information that's inaccurate, and fighting the urge to weigh in and correct every, factually incorrect piece has been challenging, because there is a lot of misinformation out there. And so it's why we continue to ask all of our partners to drive traffic to the one source for Kern County, which is the public health site, right? Really letting them kind of be the lead on this, so that we know that the one message is getting out there accurately, because there is a lot of rumor and myth and misinformation. And you know this, right? You deal with this in any crisis, any situation like that. There's always rumor patrol. And we see it cropping up everywhere, and this one's really hard to battle.
It is difficult not to respond, and you have to remain your own news organization, for one. And you have to make sure that, like you said, everything is being driven to the source that is in charge of what's going on in our area. So I know we've done that on our website, is we're sending people to the public health site so they can get accurate information and consistent. Let's face it, let's be consistent with the information.
It's really important, especially with something like this, that people, we have the fear factor that we're dealing with. When anytime when you're dealing with an unknown, you just have an element of fear that is really, really hard to battle. If it was an earthquake, you have the event that happens, and then your EOCs respond, right? So you already know what you're responding to. This is the reverse of that, right? We're responding before we know what it is. And so there's just a lot of unknown out there, and trying to make sure that people have a good source that they can go to and can trust. I'd say that's probably been the biggest challenge. Yeah,
I think it's that uncertainty that's in the air as we look across the United States and see, big cities like New York being the epicenter, if you will, of this event right now, and we're all waiting to see, what lies here for California as we see the SS Mercy ported there in Los Angeles. It's saying that something's coming, and we're just got this anticipation that we're trying to wade through. That's challenging.
It is, and that's why I always, I want our residents to know, our Kern County Public Health has practiced for this. Right? They didn't wake up 2 weeks ago and start trying to figure out what to do. They've actually run practice drills on something just like this to figure out what they would do. So they know where to go as the situation changes. They know what their model is and where they're going. So I hope our residents can, kind of breathe a sigh of relief knowing that their cities and their county and their public health department are well prepared for this. And are responding, and we have good connections up through our legislature and through CalOES, and we're really well connected to make sure that we have what we need and are able to respond.
Yeah, we're communicating at all different levels, which is nice. And I promised I was only going to keep you for about 5 minutes. I think I've taken a few extra minutes, so I'll let you go, because I know you're swamped. But is there anything else that you'd like to share with the public?
Just, again, the same message is that we're doing everything we can to keep you safe, and you are blessed to live in a county who is well prepared. We happen to have one of the best EOC teams around, and other folks in other counties would tell you that. So know that you're in good hands, and if you have questions, check your Kern County Public Health site for the latest information.
Outstanding. Megan Pearson, she is our Chief Communication Officer for the County of Kern. Megan, thank you for carving out this time for us. We really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, Keith.
It's amazing how much information is coming at all levels. And one thing that Megan had talked about was vetting information and making sure that the information is not misinformation. So, Corey, I know, you and I dealt with, getting information and getting incorrect information and making sure that it's correct.
First thing, do you know Megan Pearson was a barrel racer at one point in her life? I didn't know that. We were sharing rodeo pictures because I'm a rodeo guy. I have a bull riding career.
Oh, yeah. I saw the bull. That you wrote. That was not a bull.
And then Megan posted a barrel racing photo of her. I didn't realize she was a barrel racer. So anyway, side story.
The cowboy way of life is a great way of life, that's for sure.
That's why we connect. No, it is actually. I think that's been almost a problem. And again, talk about a reset of society. We had so much information at our fingertips that we didn't know. I mean, fake news. I mean, you had Facebook, Instagram trying to fact check posts because people put all kinds of crazy nonsense out there. And I've seen it start to check itself. I saw a local post the other day about COVID-19 regarding cases in Tehachapi, this and that. And I actually had people check that person and say, well, what are your sources? Who are you? You know, you need to be factual if you're going to post about this. And I'm thinking, wow, social media is now finally starting to actually consider the truth for the first time in its existence. And that was kind of crazy to see that. And especially at times like this, you want information to be accurate. So you're right. We have so much available. And I think the good news is, Key, you're on the call regularly with Megan and other people around the other cities. Greg's on calls. I'm on calls. I mean, these are things that should probably continue after COVID-19 because we're getting a chance to reconnect on a regular basis and get all of our information out there about a variety of topics. Make sure everybody's got the same message and the same information getting out to the public responsibly.
Our relationships are much stronger with all of our colleagues. They remain much stronger than they were 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, with the networking that we've been doing with the public information officers that Megan and I talked about, we've been able to talk to other cities, and they're having different things. There are things that pop up in their community regarding this COVID-19 crisis that's going on, and we're able to have the discussions and say, okay, we're not seeing that here in Tehachapi, but it's good to know that someone else is seeing something that we can actually come back and I can, and share that information with you, Greg, or Corey, or the chief of police, and make sure that, what others are seeing, the information's getting back so we can make adjustments or kind of make sure that we're ready in case something else happens that's different than today.
And I'm glad you brought up Chief of Police, because we haven't talked about public safety in the last session or two, but certainly Chief Krager and his outstanding team at Tehachapi Police Department, working with the Kern County Sheriff, the Kern Chiefs Association, just on and on. These guys are ready for the next shoe to drop, if you will, and to make sure that we continue to retain public safety and really protect people's assets. So kudos to all of our public safety personnel.
And with this volume of information, it doesn't not only comes to our level, but it's also going to the media. The media is getting information not only from the government sources, as they should, but also from the community. And I got a chance to have a conversation with Jessica Harrington of Channel 23 News, the evening news anchor, and we talked about the amount of information that's coming in. So let's check in with that conversation. Jessica Harrington from Channel 23 News, welcome to TehachaPod. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Everything has kind of changed in the world as we know it. This is one of those once-in-a-lifetime kind of events. And having a little bit of a journalism background, I wanted to reach out because journalism has changed in the way you're doing business, and the information cycle is constantly evolving, faster than I can, remember in my lifetime. What is it like for you on your end?
I think especially recently, once all of the coronavirus really popped up, my cycle has turned from trying to limit it to maybe a 10-hour work day to now I am really working almost 24 hours. From the moment I'm awake in the morning, it's updating with whatever the latest numbers are, the latest totals are, seeing what's new, what new guidelines have come down, to all the way into my shift where then we meet and we're checking in on things that we've been following up on, into the newscast, into here's another update, and then beyond into the evening up until the moment I'm going to sleep. So now it's really shifted from trying to have that work-life balance of here's my own freedom and here's my work time to right now it's so crucial that it's almost turned into a 24-hour job.
Now, with all the information that's coming out, on my end, on the government side, I'm constantly getting information that's coming out from different sources. So on your side, how are you, especially when you're trying to put together a 30-minute newscast, you've got to pick out what's important. How are you guys breaking that down and how it relates to Kern County?
Yeah, that's a great question. Unfortunately, right now we have so much information that we are having to make those tough decisions to say, what are we including in our newscasts? What are we putting on our website? What are we putting on our Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram? what will really connect with our community? What does our community care about? So, for instance, we specifically, a recent story that's been making headlines right now is the LA County Sheriff wanting to close down gun stores. Well, we know that Kern County is very pro Second Amendment rights. They want to be able to buy their firearms. So that's a discussion that we know could scare people. Could that happen here, right? Could those gun stores be closed down? So we decided to make that decision to say, let's go talk to Sheriff Youngblood. Is this something he's considering? Let's ease those fears now. We're also taking, what the president says and what the governor says. They say a lot of important information, but what actually impacts Kern County? So is it something that will impact small businesses, which are struggling right now? And if so, we need to talk to them about whatever new information they put out and what that means for our community here. So we're having to have the very minuscule discussions this is a big story, but does it impact Kern County? And that's getting really hard right now with as much information that's coming out.
Now, with that said, are you taking some of the other stories and maybe utilizing some of the other digital platforms to share it out? Like maybe it's not going to make the newscast, but it still has to get out to the community.
Yes, absolutely. Actually, that's one of the things. It's interesting for me, too, I think, being in this position. I've been, over the past probably 3 years, trying to build an Instagram following because I myself, as a consumer, love just scrolling through Instagram, love tapping through Instagram stories. And over the past probably 4 days, I've gained probably 200 followers just based on updating that. Now, some of that information had to do with schools not returning until a later date, a new bill that has passed that will allow small businesses to apply for loans. Something as small as food trucks can stay open as long as they're takeaway service. Those sort of things didn't necessarily make it into our newscast as a full story, but it went on Instagram and that started being shared. So it's going on Instagram. We also have Roku, Apple TV. We started a podcast just because there was so much information and not everything fits into our 30-minute newscast, that we're sharing our information there as well. So it's really nice to be able to utilize all of these places and take the live streams of the governor speaking and the president speaking on our Facebook page so that people can watch the entire thing if they want the information. But during the newscast, you're only going to get a snippet.
I know for us on the government side, I think we might be a little bit unique because we use a lot of digital platforms to reach as many people as possible. I think we believe that each of these platforms reaches a different demographic and we get more slices of the pie, if you will, of our population, our community base. So we really try to make sure that our messaging is going across and reaching as many people as possible. And then especially trying to utilize video messaging. And now with our podcast, we're starting to see that growth with our commuters. No one's commuting right now, but it was designed to reach the 65% of our community population that was either going to Bakersfield or the Antelope Valley. So this is just another one of these platforms that we're utilizing, and it's been effective for us. We've seen our followership grow as well. But with that said, and with what's going on with the coronavirus, the social distancing, it's changed things. You guys are changing. I know you're in the studio right now, but that hasn't been the case every night.
No, that's exactly it. Actually, we tested just 2 nights ago going remote. So for me, to make sure that we could test the equipment and make sure it was usable but still be able to deliver our newscast, that meant I went remote from a hallway here in the news studio in the station. So I wasn't in studio, but we were using all kinds of different equipment. I was sitting in front of a green screen. It looked just like the studio, but I was somewhere else. I was utilizing my laptop for the prompter to be able to read my scripts, and I was looking at a camera that you'd see out live somewhere. Now, they've changed it so that one anchor will be in studio at all times because we find it so important to make sure that the messages are getting out to our viewers at 5, 6, 7, and 11 p.m. And of course, on the morning show as well. The morning show, since there's 2 anchors there right now, one anchor will be here in studio so that if for any reason the signal goes down for Danielle Kernkamp, who's at home right now, who's remote, if her signal goes down, we can still deliver the news. Since I right now don't have a co-anchor, they've kicked everybody else out of the building. It's myself, my news director, and our general manager who are in the news portion that are physically in the building, and that's it. Everybody else is at home or working somewhere else. They're not in the building. They're not asked to come in the building. If they need something, we're delivering it to them. Just for safety and for social distancing, our engineering crew, they work in a separate area. The doors are closed and we are not allowed to physically walk back there to make sure that we don't invade their space. We keep our distance, we keep everything nice and clean, and they don't invade our space. So it's very different, and it's also making communication a little tougher.
Have you got any feedback from some of your field reporters that are out there, the MMJs that are out there? Because this is a new ball game. They're going to press conferences still that Kern County Health is putting on every day, and there's people there. So, I mean, it's got to be a challenge with spacing and making sure you get your interviews or your sound, whatever it is that you're trying to get in that story.
Yes, actually, I just talked to a reporter last night, and we have now set up where our microphones are standing on like light stands. So they're just a freestanding microphone that we can go set somewhere, let a person walk up to and have the conversation from 6 feet or more away. We also discussed today how we can do a phone conversation. So for instance, we're doing a story tonight about a local woman who during her walks through the neighborhood, she's a photographer, with her kids to get their exercise, she's stopping by her neighbors' houses and taking pictures of them through the window. How they're communicating is over the phone. So we said, well, why don't we do that? We can film a story, hold up a sign with our phone number, say, hey, call me, and you can film them through the window talking on their cell phone or their house phone to you about what they're doing to pass time, what they're doing to stay active and healthy and get through this time with their family. And so we're having to come up with these unique ways of doing things, and then also just sanitizing everything. Even those freestanding microphones, every time we talk to somebody, we have to wipe them down all over again.
I totally get it. We had to change our model for like a city council meeting. We've now gone from the standard council meeting setting to doing it out on the steps of City Hall to now utilizing Zoom to host a virtual meeting. So, you know, there's been some changes in some of the laws to allow it right now, but it's interesting to utilize technology to get the business done of the people. So it's fascinating time we're in right now.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing is, too, that we're trying to remain conscious of is we're giving people platforms to reach out to us if they have questions through a lot of social media. Now, in some instances, our older generations, they're not as equipped to be able to log on to Zoom maybe, or they don't have a smartphone. So of course we still have our phones set up here at the station, but what we're doing is we're call forwarding to someone's cell phone at home. So that way they can still have that interaction with us and ask the questions. We had a woman call yesterday. It was great. She said, how many people are actually being hospitalized who have tested positive? And I explained to her that we have asked that question. Public health at the time was not able to give that information, but we asked that question again today, and we found out that Public Health tomorrow will be releasing that information. They'll start doing it every Friday. So we're still giving them access, but it's just changed the way we've done everything.
Yeah, we're doing the same. We've got someone still manning the phone at City Hall, but they're by themselves. The rest of us are remotely answering the questions, you know, using the laptop and other technology. Jessica, I just want to say thank you. I appreciate your time. I'm catching you between newscasts. So I really appreciate you taking a few minutes to talk to us. The folks here, they recognize you, they relate to you, and appreciate your professionalism, you know, on air.
Thank you very much. And thank you for having me. And if you don't mind, I would just love to say that if people have questions, don't feel like they can't reach out to the news. Sometimes there are things that we don't think of. There are stories that we don't think of. There are angles we don't think of. And that's because of our life experience. Your life experience is different. We are here for you. Consider us the middleman between those people that you need the information from and us, right? We'll be there to deliver it to you. So please don't be afraid to reach out. We are human. We live here too. We're dealing with this too, and we're here to help.
Great. Jessica Harrington, Channel 23 out of Bakersfield. Thanks for your time, and hopefully you'll visit again.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me.
That was a nice conversation with Jessica over at Channel 23. She's such a pro. It's nice to see that information is vetted before they want to run with it. There's so much volume of information. So that's really important to know that at least they're trying to do their best and not just chasing rumors and spitting those back out to the public.
Yeah, I think there's so much. Again, there's so much out there, and I think it's a time to double check and triple check and just make sure that the source and what the result of getting that out there is going to be. I mean, is it going to do any good, or is this going to cause more confusion? That's always something that you've got to consider.
And I know that we really try to pride ourselves in getting information out to the community at so many different levels, you know, now with the podcast, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, SoundCloud, YouTube, on Nextdoor, through our newsletters that Corey and I put out. There's a lot of information to be shared. We try to make sure that we're getting it out there to the public as well as to the media. So it's just amazing how many different avenues that we can talk to people today.
And you know, the good old-fashioned telephone. Call me. If you don't like to, you know, cruise around social media, if you just want to know the answer to a question, if I don't have it, I'll find it. But call City Hall, and we will find the answer for you. Absolutely.
And if you've got a question about a future episode or something you'd like us to talk about here on TehachaPod, you can always send us an email at media@TehachapiCityHall.com. Gentlemen, thank you again for sticking around for another episode of TehachaPod.
TehachaPod is a conversation about Tehachapi designed for the people who live here or who would like to know more about this mountaintop community. If you have a question you would like answered, email media@tehachapicityhall.com. We will try to answer it on a future episode of TehachaPod.